We all know I get incredibly excited about orchids, but let's just stay a bit flaccida for now. This is Coelogyne flaccida. What is seemingly a common orchid is actually incredibly rare. And if you want to know why, I'll explain it to you. Welcome to the Nature Company. If this is the kind of information you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button down below if you hadn't already, and that notification bell to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. To explain to you why Coelogyne flaccida is so rare, let's start at the basics and explain to you a bit about the plant. Coelogyne flaccida is generally found in the Himalayas, down through China, across northern India and down into Myanmar. So this gives it quite a broad range of distribution. And in these areas, it's a fairly cool to intimate growing orchid. So this allows it to adapt to a wide variety of different situations. It's a fairly shade-loving orchid. It would enjoy the same sort of light conditions that you'd give your cattleyas, but it is also more adaptable. So it will allow for higher light conditions than your cattleya will, and it will also allow for lower light conditions than your cattleya will. And even in those lower light conditions, it will still produce amazing sets of blooms like this. The blooming spikes come out right at the beginning of spring. After winter period, they like that little bit of winter rest, but they don't like to go completely dry. So in winter, by misting the leaves and giving them light sprays of water will be ideal for that approximately 6 to 8 week period that you're resting your orchid. You're not giving it any feed at that point. You're just making sure that you don't get withering of those pseudobulbs so that it still has enough energy to produce these flowers. And the reason it needs all that energy to produce these flowers is the scent. It gives off an incredibly large amount of scent. Standing this close to it is quite confusing because the scent is nice, but it's in overload. So when you're standing this close, or if you're keeping it indoors, it can almost smell as strong as cat pee in your house. So you really want to get close to see the flowers, but you want to have enough space between you and it with some air movement to sort of bring those scent levels down a bit so that it's actually quite pleasant. And with all things that produce a lot of scent, a lot of energy is spent on producing that scent, and that also reduces the amount of energy the plant can give the flower to keep it long lasting. So these are pretty short-lived blooms. And also they tend to appear really quickly. You can be looking at your plant one day, and then a week later, it almost seems like that short, that already you have a flower spike that's about to open. It seems to happen really, really quickly. But also because they have these persistent leaf sheaths down at the base of the pseudobulbs, you actually don't notice those flower spikes because they're pretty much the same color as them until they've extended quite a bit and the buds have started forming, and then you can start noticing them. But this, from flower initiation to full flower, happens a lot faster than with a lot of other orchids. Also, all your blooms open up at the same point. So you get this magnificent display, although it's relatively short-lived. But in such big mother plants like this, you will land up with a slightly extended flowering period because you will still have other flower spikes that have matured slightly slower, and then those will slowly open up. But invariably, you have this one major flush for about a week, and I'm afraid that's about it. But still, the scent is something to behold. If it's hanging up in a courtyard or something, at the other end of the courtyard, it will fill that whole courtyard with the scent, and if you've got a bit of a breeze flowing through, it's actually quite lovely. If you're looking carefully at the Coelogyne flaccida, it has those almost conical to ovoid pseudobulbs with 2 lanceolate plicate leaves. This is generally what you'll see in the majority of Coelogynes. The pseudobulbs also have these longitudinal grooves in them, which isn't withering, it's just the way they are. When the bulbs start to wither, you can notice the difference. Also with Coelogynes and the flaccida, you'll notice they're particularly prone to anthracnose. It's these broad, thin leaves that allow the fungus to take on quite quickly, but you can notice even with this anthracnose, it hasn't affected the flowering at all. As long as you're producing the right climate for it with enough air movement, it's able to withstand any of this attack, even if you're not treating it regularly. And by what sort of climate are you looking at? Well, they are very adaptable. But if you want to give it the perfect climate, you're looking at about 26 to 28 degrees during the day, which is approximately 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is all year round. They do like, during that winter rest period, they like to get a little bit of a cold snap. They like evening temperatures of around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius, which is what, 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just to give it the impetus to really flower well. But the wonderful thing about them is their adaptability, which has come through that vast variation in distribution, is that they'll accept higher temperatures. Sometimes they'll even accept lower temperatures, and they can still do this for you. They're also relatively fast growers, and they're very easy to multiply up. We can see how they produce almost long threads of those pseudobulbs, and it's easy just to snip off some of those with 3 or 4 bulbs attached, and as long as you're doing that after flowering, they propagate up really easily. Also, what you can do is, if you've got a large plant like this and you have a big internal mass of old used pseudobulbs that no longer have leaves, you can actually remove a length of that with 3 or 4 pseudobulbs attached again, and that will also produce new shoots. And if you're taking off a large enough piece off your Coelogyne, you will still get flowers in that following year if you've taken them off in early spring just after the flowering is finished. The massive amount of scent does bring a lot of insects. You're looking at moths, the occasional wasp even, and ants, so often a hanging basket is ideal to keep them away from the ants. Also, by the hanging basket, you get to see the full display instead of cramping them into a pot where you're not necessarily going to be able to see these pendulous flowers as well, unless the pot is lifted off the counter. Sorry, and I get confused. I'm busy talking about insects. But it has been found that the only real pollinator of the Coelogyne flaccida is the eastern bee. So you'll also see bees around your plant, as I don't know if the camera was picking up the little bee buzzing around. All of its climatic adaptations and its adaptability have made this orchid one of the easiest Coelogynes to grow, if not one of the easiest orchids to grow. It really is so easy and wonderful and rewarding. And with these beautiful creamy white flowers with their yellow in and around the lip and those little flecks of orange or red, it really is so pretty. And when it gets to such a big plant, well, you can see for yourself. Also, one of the reasons that these Coelogynes are so easy to grow, and you can grow them indoors or outdoors or just about anywhere, is because of their humidity requirements. They only require between 40 and 60% humidity, which is easily achievable indoors. And the watering requirements of this Coelogyne are frequent. It doesn't like to dry out, especially during those growing periods. It likes quite a lot of water. It's relatively thirsty, those roots are quite fine, and they dry out incredibly easily. So keep it well watered during its growing period, and only in that winter rest period that you want to give it, that you can slow down on your watering. You don't necessarily want your media to go bone dry. You want to keep it just slightly moist and then misting your leaves. Misting and giving a light spray to the overall plant itself, just so that you don't get any of that wrinkling or desiccation of the pseudobulbs. And the coelogynes grow at those higher altitudes of between 1,000 and 1,800 meters in their natural habitat. So that's generally what gives them that ability to withstand those colder temperatures. And that's how you get the best out of your Coelogyne flaccida. So now you're asking me, now that I've told you how easy it is to grow and that it will grow indoors and outdoors and just about anywhere in almost any climate and all of that nonsense, why is it so rare? Well, the reason it is one of the rarest orchids is because its name has not been changed since it was initially given it. Coelogyne flaccida is the name it was given in the 1830s, and the name is stuck all the way through until now. And there's not many orchids that you can say that about at the moment. So, common but rare. And thank you for watching. If you have found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming videos so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.